Be glad for what you don't have. It might not be for you. What others have could make you sad. Many falsehoods often seem true. Consider what you are doing and what you are chasing after. Every whims isn't worth pursuing and can end in disaster. Set your heart and mind and learn to be content. Pay attention to the warning signs. What is for you will be heaven sent. An excerpt from page 15 of Fame by Robert L. Horton.
Welcome to P English Literature, a YouTube channel that conveys Amazon, Goodreads, blog, and video book reviews coupled with interviews with authors. It's a perfect channel for book lovers, authors, and writers generally. P English Literature, the exact channel for you and me.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the review of Fame by Robert L. Horton. This is a poetry book that I find impactful. It is encouraging. It asks words that are mostly centered on the condition of the human being. And that is why I consider it a sort of poem that is particularly for human. It is intrinsically centered on humanity. It is very philosophical. Some of the poems there aims at communicating, impacting knowledge to us as human beings. It is didactic in certain aspects. It is instructive in certain aspects. It is educative, and it has a sort of information, wise word to communicate. And I love poems that are able to pull me in as a reader. I love poems that are extremely philosophical. I love poems that I would read and I will gain knowledge from. That's what I experienced. That's what happened to me while I read through Robert's Fame. It is full of life-saving information that are quite very amazing. Something that I haven't really come about when it comes to poem. And I feel so excited talking about this book. From the titular poem itself, that's Fame, which actually have a sort of a line and stanza that is extremely centered on what you need to know in order to get fame. The distractions that we need to avoid if we like a life full of fame, and the path to destiny, the obstacles encountered alongside. And there's a way the line and stanza was written. It was written in a way that I could fuel it. It was written in a way that I could oh yeah, this information are powerful. This is the kind of information I think people would love to know about. And I so much love it because I'm a poet and I love poetry that are able to give me information. I love the fact that I'm not just reading a poem for pleasure, but I'm able to learn something in the course of reading it. I'm able to learn something. The poem is able to speak to me. And that's a trait that I find quite amazing whenever I'm reading poetry, and I found that in Fame by Robert L. Horton. Before I give you my review of this book is actually going to be spoiler-free, very short because it's a poetry book, but I would just love to read to you the back inscription. Fame is Robert Horton's third book of poetry. His previous works include Release, Inspired Poetic Messages, published 2015, and Miscellaneous Pieces, 2017, is currently working on his fourth book of poetry titled Black Rage and Responsible Revolution. It resides in Springville. This book is a humanistic, profound, and extremely philosophical book of poems. It is made up of 121 poems, and each poem, in my perception, has a sort of impactful message to communicate. Each poem is a type that would leave a reader thinking long after you've read it. Each poem has the power to pull me in and has a sort of a cogent information to pass on. And this is something that I love about poetry. This is something that I love about literature itself. Because, I love the fact that whenever I'm reading a book, I'm not just reading in the form of entertainment, but I love books that I would read and it to speak to me in person. I love books that I would read that would keep me thinking, pondering, seeking meaning long after I've read it. And I love books that I will read and it will keep me inspired. And that's one thing I find about Fame. Some of the lines and stanzas of some poems are extremely inspirational. Some part of the book are painful, are some sort of painful, expression, probably from the voice of the narrator here. It is very painful. Some are like an advice, like a word of advice where it's full of wisdom. And I love the fact that some part of the book also are biblical in nature. And there is another thing that I admire about the book. That's the fact that whenever the author wrote about a particular poem, it will give a sort of a note, like a footnote, towards the ending part of the page and make a biblical reference to a particular verse in the Bible where he got the inspiration. Probably, I think, where he got the inspiration to write this particular poem. So I'll be reading some poems out that I love. However, this review is a spoiler-free review. I'm not talking about everything in entirety. So I just want to show you some poems that I find very amazing and, my brief description of the book generally. The poems to me are all amazing, but there's some particular topic that I find very, inspirational. There's some particular topic that speaks to me in person and even addressed the matter of my whole life. And I was like, oh, this is very amazing, and I'm gonna get back to it to inspire and encourage myself with it. One of my most admirable poems in this book is the one titled A Jealous Hate-Filled Land. I also love Burden of Life and Bitterness. I also love Contentment and Drifters. I love Drifters because some of the lines and the stanza of the poem is trying to communicate that whoever will find a particular situation, we shouldn't make jest of them because you don't know what gets them there. And that particular situation is not actually the ending part of their life. There is hope as long as there is life. And that's another thing I want to ship into this review, the fact that the book seeks to communicate it up to the depressed, to the dejected souls, to those people who languish in extreme, painful situation or those kind of ugly circumstances surrounding their lives. I just consider it like it's a kind of an inspirational poetry, and I so much love it. I so much love it when I read through it. Another poem that I also love there is the one titled I and Lows. I also love karma. I love karma. And I'm a poet and I specifically love even expounding on the theme of karma. So whenever I see another person write about karma, it always intrigues me. And I'm like, wow, that's true. Because whatsoever you do to someone else, whatsoever you give out would come back to you. If you give out bad, it will come back to you. And if you give out something that is good, it will definitely come back to you. One of the things I admire about this particular writing is that the author is trying to tell us that we shouldn't take anything for granted. Irrespective of whatsoever you do to people, if you are being good, continue being good. And if you're kind of a bad person, you might have to change. Otherwise, people would start treating you the same way. So I love the particular poem titled Karma. Then I also love the poem titled Left Behind. That poem is very amazing. It keeps me enthralled until I finish indulging my relatable emotions in it. It is very, very deep and extremely profound. Then I love the poem titled Repentance. Repentance is a kind of a nice poem, and this poem stylishly explain the biblical feature that I find this book possessing. The book actually possesses some kind of a biblical feature, and I love the fact that it's biblical in nature, it's inspiring in nature, it's motivating in nature, and it's aimed at communicating hope to the dejected soul. It's aimed at communicating life to those people who find themselves in some kind of an ugly life situation or some sort of bad circumstances. Then I love the particular poem, another poem titled Vanity. Oh, you need to read that poem. That poem is very amazing. It explains on the vanity of this world, the futility of this world. If we can all have the notion that this world is vanity, I think it would help us to check our life day after day and be able to speak to ourselves and question any bad habit or behavior that we might have been behaving intentionally or unintentionally. So I love this particular poem titled Vanity, and this a kind of theme or topic that I specifically expounded in my book. And when I find it again here, I was like, wow, this is a kind of a swift intuition. I love the author's intuition about this particular poem titled Vanity because it speaks to me ordinarily. It speaks to me in volume. And I love the fact that the lines and stanzas of this particular poem has a message to communicate, has something cogent to pass on. And that's one of the reasons why I actually gave the book a 5 over 5 star review on Amazon. Then I love the poem titled Wish List. I love this particular poem, and I would read some part of the poem out to you. And I need to mention that some part of the poem are somewhat humorous, while some are, extremely informative in a way that it communicates cogent things that would inspire us, that would change the life of whoever found himself stuck in any form of bad habit or negative habit. So I'm going to be reading out Wish List. I felt the warmth of the sun rays and wished for better days. I wished there was healing for every soul and that the world was made whole. I wish there was a crusade of love and no more shedding of blood. I wish there was sharing of bread and that every child would be fed. I wish we did more for the poor and they didn't go without anymore. I wish there was no more abuse and that every gang called a truce. I wish there was hope and cheer and that no one lived in fear. I wish happiness wasn't hard to find and that sight was given to the blind. I wish there was a cure for cancer and that silent prayers were always answered. I wish Black Lives Matters to every cope and that every unharmed person had never been shot. I wish there was justice in the land and that I was respected as a man. I wish prayer was back in school and that society lived with a golden rule. I wish this list didn't exist and that I didn't have to wish. Considering the fact that some of the poem, just like this, is, rhythmic, it rhymes and are written in a sort of a nice meter. And this particular feature of poetry made me fall in love with the book. Another thing that I need to mention in the book is that even though a particular poem seeks to communicate a particular subject or seek to expound on a particular topic, by the time you keep reading through the lines and stanza it has, you would find that some words, some lyrics have a sort of a different message to communicate entirely. Like there was a part that said, I wish there was justice in the land. This is, in my own perception, trying to communicate that the author wished that there is justice in the land. There is justice in everywhere, all over the world, whereby there will be no cause for racism, whereby there will be no cause for discrimination, whereby there will be no cause for any sort of thing that seems to tear us apart from uniting together as one. And all this kind of feature, all this kind of interesting feature that this book, that every poem inscribed in this book possess, made me love it, and I was looking forward to reading more of this author's future works. I get to know that this is his third book. I would be on the lookout to read his first and second book and probably come up here too and share the good news here. I so much love this poem. I don't want to spoil it. Some part of the poem also expound on the COVID-19, the coronavirus issue, how it impacted the world, how it affected the people, and the chaos it instilled in us, the lives it took away, and the effect, the drastic effect that it has on us. Then some of the poem also expound on the city of Chicago. I can't point out in cogent what happened to the city of Chicago as told by the author, but he has some sort of poem for the city of Chicago, like praying for the city and all of that. This reminded me that I have some sort of questions that I jotted down, close to 10 questions about the book that I jotted down, and I was looking forward to asking the author if I eventually should do an interview with him. on this channel. Some poems also expound on human hatred, the situation of the human mind, the hatred that human being nurtured in their heart towards another person, and how some people are like agent of destruction, how they become discouraging people from moving forward. And there's a particular poem here that I love, A Jealous Hateful Land, that particularly expound on this theme. Like some lines were like, they tried to ruin me while I was on top, walking in my destiny, hoping I won't flop. But as you clearly see, I am not giving up. Nothing will stop me. Doors that God opens, no man can shut. Then, jealousy is a raging storm that is brewing inside. To some, failure is the norm, but I'm taking success in stride. This is a hate-filled land. That is why we can't get along. Hatred corrupts the soul of a man. That's very true. Divided, we are weak, but together we are strong. Let hate end and love begin, and stop tearing each other down. Let's become better women and men, worthy again of wearing crown. Wow, this is very amazing. This is very amazing. And I love the fact that this particular poem seeks to question the human mind, seems to, tackle and, challenge us as human beings that, oh yeah, this is how we ought to behave, this is how we ought to go. Some poems also expound on the inevitable of sadness in this world. The world is full of sadness, just that we just have to understand how to overcome it. And while I was reading some poems that fall under this category, it made me remember a particular notion that I've nurtured before I started reading this book. And that's a quote that I think I derived during the course of the week, that can we ever pass through this world without pain? Who is that man who claimed that he has a perfect life? So all this kind of write-up, all this kind of amazing introspective write-up that are quite questioning, something that you would read and you would keep questioning, something that you would read and you keep thinking long after you've read it, is what I find amazing about this particular book called Fame. And I'm a fatalistic writer, so part of this book expound on destiny, like fame itself. Then some other part also expound on veganism, and a lot of poems that I think everybody is gonna find pleasure in. It's made up of 121 poems, so even if some poems does not fit well in for you, you will find some that is going to speak to you as a person. You will find some that is going to resonate with you. So I don't want to spoil this book. I just want to give you a short video book review of the book. And if you'd like to get a copy of Fame on Amazon, I left a link in the description part of this video for you to get a copy directly on Amazon. So this is going to be my short review of Fame by Robert L. Horton. If you watch this video to this point and you're yet to click on the subscribe button, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button over there. Turn on the notification bell so you can get notified anytime I release new video. Thank you very much for watching my video book review of Fame by Robert L. Horton. It is very humanistic, it is evocative, and it's a philosophical kind of book. Thank you very much. See you in my next video.